Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. I guess we'll wait one more minute. That's how early I was. Wait one more minute.
We are live.
Oh, okay.
You are welcome to
Okay,
start
so we'll go ahead then.
whenever you are ready.
We will go ahead with attendance. I'm here. Suzanne?
Present.
Patrick? No Patrick. Adam? John?
Present.
Bill?
Aki?
Okay, great. I can't see you on the screen, Bill. Thank you. Jason?
Here.
Great. Kim?
Present.
And Greg? No.
Greg
Greg.
muted.
Here. I was waiting to unmute.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Great. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes from the last meeting? Any edits? My comment was, great job, Suzanne, for running that meeting so efficiently. Good work. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I move the minutes be approved.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Yep, that's right. I will vote in favor. Suzanne?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Bill?
Oops, aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Kim?
I'm gonna abstain since I wasn't at the last meeting.
Fair enough. And Greg?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Megan, I'm going to turn it to you for announcements.
All right. I do not have any announcements today, but I believe Jessica does.
Okay.
Just a quick announcement. I don't know if you can see me. Hey, it's Jessica Bullen in the Stormwater Engineering Group, Environmental Engineering Group, which is underwater resources. And just a quick blurb about the town's gone through like a small reorganizational change, with the growth and everything and new management. And so the EAB has always been housed in Water Resources, and it will continue to be in Water Resources Department, but sustainability is moving from Water Resources, from the Environmental Engineering Group, to a new department, which is called Budget, Performance, and Strategy, and that's over in Town Hall. And so nothing should change, from your end, what you're seeing.
Understood.
Megan and Val are still going to be involved. It's just kind of where the EIB lives within the town, and the fact that sustainability is now in a different department. But we all still work really well together, and we're going to keep this thing as seamless as we can. Just wanted to update you on that. If you have any questions.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Will we still meet in the same place?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Just logistics. Just a FYI, just so you know what's going on as the town has grown. Thank you.
Okay, great. That's all we have. Do we have committee updates?
We do have committee updates. So for Tree Cap, they will be discussing they will not be discussing that. This month, they have officially changed over staff liaisons to Philip Barnes, who is our power line forester in the electric department. And they are now discussing the idea of recording monthly videos on basic tree care and adding them to the Tree Cap webpage.
I like that.
For Bee City, they're actually meeting tonight, right at this moment. So we'll have updates at the next meeting. And a side note, Phil, now liaison of Tree Cap, recently interviewed on Peak City Podcast on the Town Beehive. So if you're interested in that, go check out that podcast.
Okay, I like that. Is Bee City going to get back to us with some edits on our suggested zoning conditions?
Yes, I believe that's part of their discussion.
Okay, great. And would someone like to speak, maybe Suzanne, for the UDO amendment working group?
So we met again for a couple hours last week, I think.
June 7th, yeah.
Yeah, and so what we've done now is we've split the list into sort of a residential section and then a non-residential section. And we are going through it with the specific example language. So when you make sort of the general statement that we have now on our current list, we turn that into a goal. And then below that, we are adding some example language that the board could use as is or sort of riff on depending on the project. And we are scheduled to meet again because we did not get all the way through it. And then after that, I think we should be in pretty decent shape. What, John or Adam, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think if we can get through the next meeting, get through the last half of it, we should be in good shape to get something to where we can let the board look at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. We're close.
That sounds wonderful. All three of the things you just said you've done sound great. Thank you.
It will look different.
Great. I think that's great, right? It's a work in progress, right? And we started it from nothing, right? So
Right.
we should feel comfortable editing it all the time. Does anyone have any questions for the work group? Cool. I'm ready to hear about the mayor's Monarch Pledge.
Okay, I know that Councilmember Stallings was really interested in hearing
Oh,
this
okay.
as well.
Okay.
And I don't see her in, but I know that this will be recorded, so she'll be able to see it. So this is just a quick update on Mayor's Monarch Pledge, which Apex has pledged to, and it's organized through the National Wildlife Federation. So as we know, well, as you may know, monarch migration patterns are, through the spring and the winter time, and we are in a unique spot where we are situated in the middle of both migration pathways. So monarch and monarch preservation is very important in our efforts in this area. This is
both pathways.
yes. So the spring migration from south to north, and then the winter migration from north to south.
Got it.
Yeah, the yellow and the red arrows there in our region. This is a photo that I took at Lake Pine in 2019. So I've seen monarchs in our area, which is a good thing. So the National Wildlife Federation provides this opportunity for municipalities to take this pledge. And the minimum requirement is to pledge at least 3 action items out of 30 on their list. So out of all of the municipalities in North Carolina, every town and city and county indicated with the orange dot on the screen has pledged at least 1 year between the years 2015 and present. And then specifically in our area, we are one of a few right here in town of Apex who have pledged for the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. And this was inspired by a group of 3rd graders from a school in Holly Springs, who I believe wrote the mayor urging our town to take this pledge. And this was back in 2020. I believe the pledge dates, the pledge period is between December and March. And so the next year, Apex went ahead and submitted their pledge. So starting in there's the proclamation there, signing on. And then of course, starting in 2021, there were 5 action items that the town of Apex actually signed on to. And we'll kind of go through those in a little bit of detail here. So I spoke with David Wood, who is the liaison for Bee City Committee, who has overseen some of these action items. I haven't heard back about action item number 2, but I will say that action item number 12, which is to plant or maintain a monarch and pollinator-friendly demonstration garden at City Hall or another prominent or culturally significant community location, was completed. And as you know, that garden is located at our nature park over on Evans Road. So that's been that's been implemented, which is exciting, as well as action item number 19, which is to add or maintain native milkweed and nectar producing plants in the community garden. So that's present at the pollinator garden as well. Action items 17 and 22 were added to, and for forwarded over to our 2022 goals. We did sign the pledge again this year, earlier in February. So action 17 is to host or support a Monarch Neighborhood Challenge to engage neighborhoods and homeowners associations within the community to increase awareness, support community unity around a common mission, and create habitat for the monarch butterfly. And then action 22 is display educational signage at Monarch Gardens and pollinator habitat. So right there at our local pollinator garden and nature park. So more to come on action item number 2.
Can you just tell us what that is?
Oh yeah, of course. It's to launch or maintain a public communication effort to encourage residents to plant monarch gardens at their homes or in their neighborhoods. So now for 2022, there are 3 action items that the town has signed on to. Again, there are 2 there that the town forwarded on from 2021, and then we actually have a new action item as well. So action number 6 here is the new one. It's to engage with HOAs, community associations, or neighborhood organizations to identify opportunities to plant monarch gardens and revise maintenance and mowing programs. And then of course, again, action 17, which is to host or support Monarch Neighborhood Challenge to engage neighborhoods and homeowners associations within the community. So those are drafted and ready to go, but currently on hold until, as you've heard, we have some reorganization within the town. So it's on hold until our new community engagement department launches this next fiscal year and can contribute feedback before that begins. And then action number 22, which is that signage, is launched. It's begun with support from a local Apex Girl Scouts troop as part of their silver project. So that's currently in progress.
And why was it that the students were from Holly Springs that came to our town council meeting?
So I believe they, in that 3rd grade classroom, started an environmental awareness initiative, and that year was focused on monarch butterflies. And so they not only went to Apex, but they went to Holly Spring leaders, Cary leaders, and other cities and towns around our area.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I noticed Holly Springs didn't show up as signing on to it.
That's one reason I asked. Which is kind of interesting, but like Megan said, that they just reached out regionally because we're trying to help support that migratory pattern, which takes lots of us working together. And so they were so excited. They came to a town council meeting. They made us these beautiful little notes and colored all these beautiful monarch butterflies. And they just were really sweet. And I appreciated their activism and their advocacy.
I do too.
Any questions? Any other questions? Great. Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah, that's great. And now we talk about trees for the triangle.
Awesome. We have Dave Klemp here with us. Welcome, Dave, to the Environmental Advisory Board. Dave is the Executive Director of Trees for the Triangle, and he's here to give a basic overview of what Trees for the Triangle is and introduce that nonprofit to you all and explain a little bit about how we could potentially collaborate. Take it away.
Great, thank you.
Hi, thanks. I hope everybody can hear me okay.
Great.
Yes, excellent. Fantastic. My internet has been jumping in and out, I think because of the storm that we're getting. So if I just disappear, I didn't run away on you. I just lost my internet connection again. Just want to say hi. Thanks for having me out here to the EAB to talk a little bit about Trees for the Triangle. I'm not sure how familiar each of you is with us as a program, but we've been happy to be working with Megan so far and hope to be doing some cool projects in Apex. I'll just kind of give you a brief run through about myself and Trees for the Triangle, kind of wrapped up together. I came out of NC State with a degree in forest management. While I was there, I got really interested in urban forestry in particular, diverged a little bit in interest from a lot of my classmates who are out, surveying lots of forests for cutting down as we speak, probably. I got interested in planting urban trees and maintaining urban canopy. Just seemed like a really fun kind of puzzle to solve. And I love puzzles. So got interested in that. Found that the city of Raleigh at the time did have an urban forestry free tree planting program called Neighborwoods. I don't know if you all have heard of that one. It doesn't exist anymore. But I did get a job with them part-time as a assistant tree planting coordinator for the city of Raleigh for a few years there while I was finishing up my degree, and then actually a little bit after I had graduated. Really enjoyed it. It was an excellent program. We got lots of trees in the ground. Working for a city government has its, constraints, as I'm sure you all are aware. So, we couldn't plant anywhere other than city property. We did a lot of the rights of way out in front of people's yards, which oftentimes is only 3 feet of grass between a curb and a sidewalk. So we did everything we could. I'm still proud of the work that we did, though. We planted a lot of trees. That program eventually got cut from the budget. So as I saw that going away, I saw kind of an opportunity to in that, I knew if I started. Oh, somebody have a question?
Nope, you just froze for a second, but you're back on.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so I just kind of saw an opportunity to set up a program that could be a sort of spiritual successor to the Neighborwoods program, and operating as a private nonprofit, we wouldn't have all the same restraints that the city had. So we could plant on private property into somebody's yard where there might actually be more space for a healthier tree over time, versus what we were allowed to do as the city. So I kind of thought, I know how the program worked. I'll start my own nonprofit, do some of that work, expand the scope to cover the whole triangle rather than just Raleigh. Because I know the suburbs are growing just as quickly as Raleigh, if not more quickly at this point as far as development goes. So yeah, in 2017, I took a Wake Tech class online on how to start a nonprofit, and kind of just dove in and went for it with not a lot of nonprofit experience, a lot more tree experience than nonprofit experience. And I'll be the first person to admit that in front of everybody. But I dove in with 2 feet, started in 2017. We got our nonprofit status in May of 2018. So we've just hit 4 years since we've officially been a 501c3, which really frees you up to, get grants and donations and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So we've had a few planting seasons. We've gotten a few hundred trees in the ground. And our overall goal is to hit 50,000 trees by the year 2050. So 50 by 50 was easy enough to remember, right? That's a pie in the sky kind of number, but I've worked it out. If we keep expanding our trees planted per year, and we're pretty much on track to keep doubling until we hit about 1,500 trees a year, we should be able to hit that 50,000 by 2050 goal. I don't want to jump ahead of myself too much, but our mission, I've stated our goal. Our mission is simply to improve the aesthetic, economic, and ecological health of the Triangle area through the planting of trees, which is fairly broad, and that's intentional. I just know that if we keep planting trees properly, with productive native species, all of those things will happen just by way of the trees existing. So I've left it fairly broad so that we can operate all over the place. I've covered mission, I've covered our goals. I've been very proud of what we've accomplished so far, and we have been a very, very tiny nonprofit that has grown up to being a small nonprofit. nonprofit. So I'm proud of even being a small nonprofit at this point. I'm currently our only employee. I've got a great board that is growing as well. In the few years, we've gotten some grants from the likes of MetLife and others that have allowed us to get our own truck and trailer and water tank and pump and all these things and tools. So our capacity to plant trees is growing so that we can hopefully each season plant more and more. I'm working on building a troop of volunteers who can go out and make informed assessments of people's yards as our requests come in, and then help me go out and plant properly. Again, I'll stress planting properly the trees that we do put in the ground. Every one of our trees that we plant, either myself or somebody that I've trained to plant trees, has got a direct involvement in actually putting them in the ground. That was one change we made from Neighborwoods. When I came from Neighborwoods, we used to, deliver the trees, but it was up to the homeowner to plant, and that can have mixed results. So I was determined that we were going to have a little bit more involvement, and I'm happy to say that of all the trees, I try and check back in on some of our trees, and certainly I'll talk a little bit more later about the Cary Tree Archive, but there we have, I would say over a 90% survival rate so far, knock on tree. But we've been happy that the trees we put in the ground seem to be properly planted in the first place, and they seem to, at least a few years in, they're thriving rather than just surviving. It's hard out living in the streets for some of these trees, but they're doing okay. We try and pick native species that do well. What was my next point here? Oh, I wanted to talk about some of the different places that we've been able to plant and who we've been able to plant with. You guys just actually mentioned a Girl Scout project. That was cool. I've been able to plant with Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, businesses like small businesses, even large businesses up to, I mentioned MetLife. When they gave us their grant, they also have employees come out and plant. We've planted with multiple religious groups, lots of school groups, honors and all these different clubs from schools that have to get service hours and things. So it's been really cool. I've gotten to work with people from, parents and a 3-year-old. They planted a tree for his 3rd birthday. So 3 years old all the way up to well into the 70s and 80s. So a diverse group of people, and we have planted at homes, a couple of businesses. We've planted at churches. We have planted recently in the last year, for the first time, we planted at a couple of schools, couple of high schools in Wake County. And this spring, we planted our first fire station, which I thought was really cool. So I'm always looking for what's the next different type of venue we can plant at. But of course, homes is a big deal. So I guess I'll kind of walk through our process, which is we have a website, treesforthetriangle.org, pretty straightforward there. Anybody can, go onto our website, and we have a tree request form that somebody can fill out with your, basic info, name, address, and a comment if they want to make any specific requests. But that comes to me, and we will go out to that yard, do an assessment of what would actually be a good fit as far as how many small, medium, or large maturing trees. And I break them down by size so we know what's going to kind of fit. I treat each tree well. I always want to stress that we go for the largest maturing tree we can, because that will have the greatest long-term environmental benefits. You guys probably already know that. You're the environmental board. So let me know if I'm saying anything that you guys know already. But we do try and plant the biggest tree we can to fill in that space, shade better, absorb more water, yada, yada, yada. So that request comes in, we do the assessment. I get to talk to the homeowner probably for the first time since we have gotten the request, we arrive at a species that I suggest. Usually people take my suggestions, but everybody's got their ideas or things that they'd like to see planted in their yard. So I respect that. And then fall rolls around and it's time to go out, and I'll go to the nursery, round up a bunch of trees for an area. Might not always necessarily be all the same neighborhood. Occasionally we'll do a full, like a street planting or a neighborhood planting of a bunch of homes within the same neighborhood. A lot of the times though, they're scattered throughout town. So I'll just try and clump those together and get those all planted in the same day. And then it's time to go back to the nursery and hit the next area, zip code or whatever it may be. So that's kind of our start to finish. We do operate as a pay what you can tree planting service, in that we don't sell trees and we don't require any donation for the trees that we plant. We just have a suggested donation of, at this point, $100 per tree, which covers, our cost for the tree, my time, mulch, et cetera, fuel. And then hopefully a little bit of that actually would help cover the next person's tree. So it sort of operates as a pay it forward model. If you pay the full donation, some people pay more, some people pay less, but it's the people that donate less or can't donate at all that are usually the ones that I really want to be able to plant for. If somebody is worried about feeding their kids or paying their light bill, I certainly don't want them to worry about being able to plant a tree. So we're trying to reach those folks just as much as the person in the $1 million house a few minutes down the road. So we're hitting all of those. So it has generally worked out that most people pay the suggested donation, and then that helps pay for anybody else's tree. So I took inspiration from, and I don't know if you've been to A Place at the Table. It's a Pay What You Can cafe in downtown Raleigh. Fantastic program, also a nonprofit that a friend of mine started, and I loved that model so much. I shamelessly stole that model. So it's worked out really well so far, and we hope that it continues to do so. I might be running out of things to say, or this may have been just one long run-on sentence. I'm sure I have other things to say, but I wanted to leave plenty of time for you guys to ask questions if you had any, specifically about working within Apex, because I do want to plant lots of trees in Apex.
I've got a question. How do you reach out to those who may not be able to afford the donation fee?
Well, so mostly I've got requests coming in, and I don't ask up front, if anybody wants to donate or not. So, all the way through the process, I will treat everyone the same, obviously. So I'm looking for requests to come in. Now, we don't do a lot of advertising thus far. I have stopped in and talked to some apartment complexes just kind of off the cuff if I notice they are looking really bare as far as tree canopy. I've actually just stopped in personally and offered some trees, and that's worked out okay a couple of times. I'm not doing much advertising, and that may actually be where things like, the town of Apex's Facebook page or something that, you've got a lot more reach, actually, you may be surprised to know, than Trees for the Triangle's Facebook page has. So partnering up with, we did work with the town of Wake Forest. They've been a good partner to us in the past, in that they've actually put out an ad for us through their Facebook page, and we got a lot of requests in from that, in which they advertised that anybody can get a tree. We got a bunch of requests in, and actually I I have an arrangement, not to make it sound shady, but an arrangement with the town forester, urban forester of Wake Forest. He's got a budget for planting trees that he can't always necessarily meet by planting trees on that public property, you know, the same restraint we had when I worked for Raleigh. So he has told me, you know, if you're planting in town limits of Wake Forest, we can provide you the tree that you will then plant in Wake Forest. So that has worked out really well. I don't know if I fully answered your question. I just kind of talk in circles, but hopefully I'm adding new things and answering your questions. But yeah, so thus far I have been not doing a lot of advertising to reach certain areas. Oh, I did want to mention though, I don't know if you guys have talked about the tree equity scores. Have you guys discussed that at all?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
Okay. I don't know if I can copy and paste in a link.
I
Is there
can always
a,
share it with them afterwards. They can share it.
Oh yeah, perfect. I'll there's a fairly new study that was done that resulted in tree equity scores. I just went ahead and sent the link in the chat there. You can look up Apex, North Carolina. And basically they're just, they've got a lot of variables that they put in, you know, canopy coverage, socioeconomic status of each of these areas, et cetera, et cetera. And they come up with a score, and you'll see if you look at this, Apex has several areas with a score of 100, which is fantastic. And they've got some with 90 or upper 90s. You also have scores in certain areas that go as low as a 43 and a 48. So I'm looking at incorporating tree equity scores into how I look for neighborhoods to plant if I'm going to go cruise through and look outside of the requests that I get, which are coming in all the time. If I want to go look for a place to plant, I'm going to be looking for some of these lower tree equity score neighborhoods, and that will be like a bullseye as far as finding some of the lower socioeconomic places that maybe have been redlined in the past, and that resulted in lower canopy coverage in some of those areas.
I'm curious, Dave, this is Cheryl, I'm with the town council. Do the scores take in consideration that there is available space for planting in the lower scoring areas?
You know, I'm not sure. It's a really good question. And I think that's probably something that I would have to go take a look at. You know, obviously, like if some of these low score areas have, you know, factories, if that's your industrial centers, then maybe you don't have as much opportunity to plant. You know, you're certainly not going to get to 100% tree canopy coverage, but perhaps we could find some places in those areas to at least boost that canopy coverage. I mean, I think overall a lot of places have a goal of meeting at least 50% canopy coverage, and that's, you know, permeable surfaces versus impermeable surfaces for rainwater. And so some of these I'm sure have below a 50%. So if we could get them anywhere closer, I mean, any improvement is better than none, I suppose.
Hey everybody, it's Shelley. I definitely agree with what Dave is saying. I do want to point out that the two areas with the lowest percentages are actually so that the one that he just had his hand on a second ago with the 43%, that's actually most of our industrial area in the town. Not saying we couldn't improve that. We definitely could, but a lot of that is older industrial area that was developed under earlier ordinances that required less preservation and planting. And then the section that had the 47%, I think the other orange piece is right around Beaver Creek Commons and that one, 48, and Home Depot and all of that, which are our largest shopping centers in town. So again, not saying we couldn't make improvements. We definitely can. There's definite room for improvement, but just kind of pointing those things out to keep in mind.
Well, that makes sense, and I hadn't looked at the aerial map compared to that yet, but that explains a lot. And I'm sure as those, every area has its development and then redevelopment and then redevelopment. So, I'm sure some of those areas will get torn up and redeveloped into something new at some point. And if you all have a tree code by then maybe as each of these projects, a warehouse gets turned into a loading dock, shared office space type new age project. Well, okay, now we're going to require some kind of tree canopy improvement in each of these spots. So it might take a little while to filter through all those as each building or lot gets recycled into a new purpose. But yeah, there's always room for improvement, right?
Thank you. Does anyone else have other questions for Dave?
This is Bill Jensen. I had a couple of questions. Have you worked with the Department of Transportation at all? I go down their highways and I look at these massive mowed lawns that cost a fortune to keep up. And about over 20 years ago now, my Cub Scout group planted some trees with the Department of Transportation at 64 in Davis. And they were very, very helpful. And I was just curious I had that question. And then the second is, what size trees do you usually plant? Is it 2.5 inch caliber?
Two good questions. Okay. First of all, I've never worked with the state of North Carolina, not because I don't want to, just because we haven't yet. I would be thrilled to get to work with them because I agree. You drive down these highways, and I understand that off a certain amount off the highway, you probably need to have clear for vehicles pulling off the side of the road. But yeah, when there's a median that's just expansive and it's just grass, it's kind of frustrating to see. So that's one of the things that I would like to work on. And I know, every roadway eventually gets reworked or expanded or moved around or whatever. But in the meantime, I would love to hit some of those with some tree improvements. So you might be able to actually tell me, I don't know how long ago that was that you said you worked with the state, but if you got any contacts, I certainly would love to make a phone call out to them and see we can get started.
It was forever ago. I think it was 24 years, judging from my son's age.
Okay.
But I think it was Donald Pearson. I'd have to try to see. And they even gave us vests and everything else. Now, we just planted seedlings. And I still drive by there and I look and I take a deep breath because those trees are sticking out oxygen now like crazy.
Wow.
It was just loblollies, but we had a variety, but it was just loblollies we put in there. And the other question, when we planted that, we planted them like 12 feet apart or something like that. And then I go driving by and there's more seedlings in between them than you could count practically, which struck me that maybe for the Department of Transportation, would you need to plant trees? Could you possibly just do Johnny Appleseed and spread seeds as a method of covering some of these areas, because some of them are massive football fields at the intersections and stuff, and And when they put the trees in, they use AutoCAD. And these poor guys have to go out there and measure the distance between tree trunks to the inch, it looks like. And it would be nice if a natural forest just spread the seeds and off you go. Anyhow, that was the thought.
Oh, absolutely. I can understand why they like to have a plan, but gosh, sometimes it doesn't look natural when we plant in perfect rows or diamond shapes or whatever it is. I actually purposefully try to not have our trees that we plant look like they've been planted by people, if that makes sense. I mean, I go for more of a natural shape. You know, I plant a lot in triangles, in like odd triangles, so that nothing looks like it's been worked into in rows. I mean, they look fine, but you can just tell that it was planted there on purpose rather than just looking natural. To answer your earlier question, we tend to plant 7-gallon trees, 7-gallon potted trees. They're usually in the realm of 5 to 10 feet tall. So fairly small caliper, but too much bigger, and you see a lot of trauma to the tree, a lot of stress, transplant shock when you move from too much bigger of a pot or certainly ball and burlap trees getting planted into place. They take a lot of water. They see a lot of stress to the roots. So I find that 7-gallon is kind of my sweet spot because it's big enough that it immediately makes an impact. You can tell and feel like there's truly a tree there, but it's small enough to not suffer from too much of that transplant shock from being put in place.
I would just like to weigh in if I could. This is Cheryl with the council again. Bill and Dave, we have talked a lot on the current council about, tree preservation, preserving habitat, and also tree replacements, when development is approved. So that's a real value of the council. And Shelley, you might want to weigh in, but it was our understanding from the planning department in their conversations with DOT that they actually did not want trees planted in the right-of-ways because of the potential impact with the roots to the roads and also with debris, because we have brought that up before too, because we have made arrangements with developers to do tree replacements or to donate to nonprofits that do work with tree preservations. And so, because we were thinking about where in Apex can trees be planted safely, replanted safely. And so I'm just curious, Shelley, do you want to weigh in? Do you have any information about that?
Sure. I don't have a lot of direct experience with working with DOT. I generally tend to work through our traffic engineers with DOT. But my understanding is they have a certain distance from the edge of the right of way that they want those trees planted, partly because of damage to potential damage from the roots, but partly for accident clearance and for debris. So it depends on where you're looking at. I think that the last time I saw a number, it was they want something like 15 to 20 feet of verge on each side. Now, there are plenty of places where there's far more than that, or where they have planted trees along the edges of the right-of-way and they mow in between. So that could be a potential opportunity. I would have to reach out to DOT and talk to them about that, but I am aware that they have some requirements as far as making sure that the large trees in particular are far enough back that they don't potentially damage the road.
Let me weigh in if you don't mind. When we did it, and we did it along 64 on the on-ramp area, they said set it back 40 feet. Don't go closer to the highway than 40 feet at that time. And I think part of that is just like what Shelley said, plus if a tree falls over, they can clip it off really easily. And most of it's back off of the roadside.
Sounds like there still might be some potential though, to do some work here, which I think is exciting.
Yeah, I think that that could definitely be an option. I do know that DOT spends a lot of money on mowing some of those areas, so they might be willing to stop mowing in certain areas to kind of let that fill in naturally, or to accommodate some smaller trees to be planted.
Yes, when we did it, I looked it up, and I think they're spending $14 million a year at that time, and that was a long time ago, just mowing. So if you could shave that by 30%, there's a lot of money there that they could help you out with.
Well, and our electric department is doing some intentional work behind that as well through ramping up a program to plant wildflowers in those areas as well, so that there's less mowing and it promotes pollinator plants. So I am sure that trees could certainly be implemented in that as well.
I think probably your biggest challenge is going to be the communication with the mowing contractors, because DOT contracts that out almost exclusively rather than their own crews, as they did many years ago. And there is typically in areas where you do not want them to mow, they install these do not mow, do not spray signs. Like, we have many rare plant populations around the state that are in the DOT right of ways. And you pretty much have to sign those off, or else they will just run right over them with a mower. So a small tree or something like that. I think communication probably at the DOT central as well as the division level is going to be critical. But I do feel like that is an opportunity worth exploring.
At the time we did it, they gave us 2-inch by 2-inch oak stakes with a white top, and we had to mark those off at the boundary. And I hope that, well, with us, they did have communication because they didn't mow down our little trees. So they're very helpful. They were, at least at that time, they were extremely helpful.
Sounds like there's a lot of potential there. I certainly would love to get my hands on some of those areas to get some trees in there. I think, I mentioned that I was going to talk a little bit about the Cary Tree Archive, and I suppose now is a good time to plug that a little bit. I don't know if you all have been out there yet, but I would certainly recommend you check it out. It's a 7-acre project we've been working on in Cary for the last few years, that is owned by an HOA, and they asked us to take it from grass mowed fields, kind of like what we were talking about with the DOT, back to forest. So kind of a land reclamation, I guess you could call it. And this is only 7 acres, so it's not a huge project, but if you walk through it, you can see the impact. We've planted at least 200 to 250 trees in the archive, all natives, all beneficial for wildlife. You can see the transformation in just a couple of years of planting in the wildlife that's present, all the birds and butterflies and all kinds of things that we're seeing come back into that area. And there's streams that run through it. The streams are healthier. We are taking that project, it's broken down between several different forest cover types. So there is a mixed hardwood section. We've got a section of legacy trees that are descendants of famous trees. One of the more interesting parts right now is a section that is divided up between a food forest and a longleaf pine savanna that we are, again, this is all literally being built from the ground up. It's about 1 acre of it that's divided about half and half between the food forest and the savanna, which are right next to each other. We seeded with somebody's got a train running through there. We seeded with all native prairie and meadow seed back in December, and that has all sprung to life. So we've got about a 3-foot tall meadow just blowing in the wind now, with prairie grasses and wildflowers and things that have really thrived over there. So we've been really happy with how that turned out. And the longleaf pine savanna has been my baby, kind of my little pet project, because longleaf pine is an endangered species. We are the land of the pine, after all. People like to call Raleigh the city of oaks, which it is, but it's the city of oaks inside the land of the pine, the longleaf pine. So this is our little tiny project to help educate and bring back some longleaf pine. Because at this point, I think a lot of people don't even know what it is, which is kind of sad. So we've got half acre that we're converting to that longleaf pine savanna, which used to cover about 90 million acres of the southeastern United States. And now there's, I think, less than 3 million or maybe even less than 2 million acres of longleaf pine savanna. Second most diverse ecosystem in the world behind rainforests. So we're going to get to burn that in the spring, show people how beneficial fire can be to the landscape. And I'm really excited about it. But yeah, I mean, I can only imagine how awesome it would be taking some of that DOT property that's just grassy fields and converting that to, some longleaf, even if it's small patches of longleaf savanna with blowing, tall grasses and wildflowers and some majestic longleaf pine standing up there as well.
Yeah, the Cary Tree Archive is quite impressive, and I definitely recommend hopping over there. You can actually get there from the apex part of the White Oak Greenway. You just ride that all the way down to the Cary Tree Archive. And actually, last year, Apex took part in planting a couple of trees in the archive, so a little piece of that.
That's right, at the highest elevation of the archive. So yeah, Apex got to plant at the peak of the Cary Tree Archive, which we thought was fitting.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. If anybody's got any more questions, feel free to shoot me a call, text, email. You can ask Megan to bug me about something. Feel free. Anytime.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
Dave, could we get your email, or I guess we can get it from Megan, is that right?
Sure, here, I'll send that here.
And I'll share it in an email as well.
Okay, that works.
There you are.
Thank you. I think we are gonna talk about the swag now. And I see Megan, those of you at home may not be able to see in front of Megan. She brought samples of all the swag.
Well,
which I have to say, Megan and Val, you picked perfect things last year. I don't really know how we're gonna do better.
I wouldn't say that we can take all the credit. I think that you all made those selections, and they were very good.
Really
We
good.
presented to them.
They're
too,
really
so.
good.
And the option here is it definitely could be that you go with the same items. I also have a little inventory check-in for you after Peak Fest last year and Earth Fest this year. So we will have the two big events that we're ramping up for is Earth Fest 2023 and Peak Fest 2023. As you may remember, we had Peak Fest in September last year due to COVID, but it will be regularly scheduled again in May.
So will it
right
again
after
be
Earth
like
Fest.
1 or 2 weeks after?
Yes.
It's a little tricky. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll plan a little more in advance this time to coordinate that and who can be at which event. But yeah, that's what we'll be talking about. So first of all, just a little quick overview of 2021 Peak Fest. It was a really great success, I would say. You all had a prize wheel and gave out some giveaways and had prizes. There's that prize wheel. The benefit of the prize wheel is it was a one-time purchase and you can keep on using it. There was also the waste sorting game. So there's those 4 bins, the landfill, the recycle, the compost, and the upcycle. We had a bunch of random items and kids could come up, play the game, and then spin the wheel for a prize. And then of course there was also the photo booth. Folks could pose with some props and the sign that says, in Apex, I want to see more blank for environments. They would pose with their answer and then again get to spin the prize wheel. Here in front of you were the options for the prizes. So we had some little plant potters. I think there was basil and maybe one other item for planting. The reusable dog bowls. The seed passports are really cool because you can you encourage folks to do that passport, do things like go car free for a day, recycle, unplug for a day, and then at the end of their passport they could plant that paper and grow flowers from it. And then finally the utensils, which I know you all have expressed that have been a huge success in the past. And then the giveaways were the seed fan. So again, that stick on the seed fan could be planted. That was, the instructions were on the back, and then on the front, it was a promotion for Apex EAB. So I will say, just an inventory check-in, you probably have about 350 fans left. So a fairly good amount, maybe enough for one event. You have this is the last utensils. So you have one to go. You have no flower pots left. Those were really popular. And no seed passports. And sorry, 6 dog bowls.
No.
That's where we're at. So we have still some seed fans left, but outside of that, as far as prizes, those will need to get ordered if y'all want to do that again.
Can I ask something stupid right quick? The seed pack, the seed plant things, are they, how long do they last before it really doesn't make sense to try to plant them?
As long as they're, my understanding from where they were purchased is as long as they're stored in a sort of dark, cool environment, like most things, that they'll last for a good long while.
That's good to know.
Yes. Yeah, so these can continue to be used. And then just as a side note, last year, Tree Cap and Bee City joined. Bill graciously brought some homemade bird houses to hand out to folks. Those are really popular. And then there were a bunch of trees that Jason and his wife brought to hand out as well as free trees, which is awesome. Earthfest, the other event. Val and I were a little busy that day, so I didn't get a ton of pictures from that one, but there you guys are. And I understand that, it was also very successful, lots of giveaways that day. A big focus on dark skies. They had some handouts for that, very educational based. We did the inventory check-in already. And now to go over to our budget for this next year, for 2022-2023. What's included, it's again 5,000. It's the same as you had last year. And that covers Peak Fest, Earth Fest, and then any other community outreach activities that you all want to pursue. So here are some options. These, if you have any other ideas, this is yours to make what it will be. So these are just a few options that we've discovered. I think I probably included some things that you've already had. So you could obviously order more plantable seed fans, have some price points there. You could reorder the seed passports if you like that activity. There's also plantable seed wristbands and other there's lots of plantable seed items, seed paper. Pause me if you want me to stop at anything, by the way. We have the flower pot set again. There are a lot of options, it turns out. And remember, there are pine trees, sunflowers, at least 4 or 5 different types of herbs, maybe even another couple types of flowers. So, you could do something different this year. Again, have the Apex EAB promotional logos on everything. Again, that travel pet bowl. have. We can order more of those. And the wheat straw utensils. There's a lot of options here, but this was the one that we went with last year, so we can reorder those. I know that there was some conversation, pros and cons, around the reusable straws, but I wanted to bring that up again as an option. Really thought about mostly things that we could order in bulk that would be cost effective, that would be good giveaway or prize items. So we could kind of ditch that idea if you'd rather do some bigger prize items and only hand out a few of those. But again, this is just to kind of stay consistent with what was done last year. Pens are another good, easy, cheap, buy it in bulk kind of giveaway item. And everything that I am showing you today is made out of sustainable materials. So we made sure that we wanted to, walk the talk here. So this is made out of recycled plastic, this pen. We have sunglasses is another idea here. Compostable dog bags, go with those pet bowls maybe. Food savers is another good one.
Do you put half the fruit there?
Yeah, so let's say, you cut your apple or your tomato or even an avocado. They have avocado shaped ones too, and you just they're called food huggers. You just section cut them on there.
Okay.
Made them without needing like tin foil or a plastic bag or anything like that. So they're silicone, you can reuse them. Candles is another option. There's lots of sustainable candles out there. But EAB under candle. I found this little fun activity. It's called the 30-day challenge. It's just this little box that you can give to somebody and they can make their own 30-day challenge, and you tear it out and you have the thing that you do for that day. So that's an option. Frisbees, another good option there. Of course, made out of sustainable material. T-shirts are a little more expensive. This is the brand that we went with for EarthFest, and we found we had a lot of success with that. It is clearly more expensive, and we could research another option that might be more cost effective. But I will say that we've heard from the mayor's T-shirts and EarthFest T-shirts, we kept having folks come up to us and say like, hey, where can I buy a T-shirt? And we had to say, well, they're for really just volunteers. So I know T-shirts a big thing that folks have been interested in our previous events. Thinking about some more dark sky type options. This is the Pocket Star Finder. Point it to the sky, find your constellations, and learn more about the night sky. So those are all the sort of giveaway and prize items that I have to present to you tonight. I have one other item here that's sort of like a prize wheel. It's like a one-time purchase. And it's in line with dark sky. So we'll see what you think about it. It's like a mini planetarium. So it inflates and folks can crawl inside and see a projection of the night sky. The price ranges, obviously this is going to be more expensive. So the cheapest option is $1,880, and that's for the smallest version of that product. And then I think there's something like 7 different size options, and it goes up to the most expensive being almost $4,000. So, it really depends on how you want to spend your money, and I just wanted to present that to you because
that's interesting.
Yeah, something that y'all have to do.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe we ought to try to come up with a theme that we want to go for before we try to pick swag. Maybe try to tailor the swag to the theme.
Like the topic, the initiative.
That's a fair
Right,
thought.
right.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's all I have. So
I feel like when you showed us those options, I was like, the things we did last year were clearly the best options.
it was hard to find other options. Really.
Right. And one thing I will say about the things we did last year was there was enough of variety that everyone who came to the booth got something they were happy to have.
Mm-hmm.
And that was helpful, right? And people wanted different things, and we were able to satisfy everyone.
Great.
But if it makes more sense to satisfy everyone by letting them crawl inside of like an inflatable thing and look at the sky, I think that's pretty cool, right? I'm open. If that's what people feel like is the right choice, I think that's pretty cool. But then there won't be any swag, right? But I think that's fine.
Well, you'll definitely have some left over depending on, the size, but it would be limited, of course.
Yeah.
How tall is that thing? I mean, you got the diameter. How tall does it get? How many people can fit in there at once?
There's gonna be a line.
What's the sustainability of it?
Right, there's gonna be a line for that.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool, if we can give people an experience rather than a thing, I think that's fine.
Yeah,
Suzanne is not sure about this. Go ahead.
I'm thinking two things. First of all, I don't know if it's like you inflate it and forget it, but if we have to have a pump running continuously, we're gonna have to deal with electricity. Second thing is, it's a big black dome. If it's hot out that day, you're gonna cook people inside of there. I love the idea of it, but I just feel like there's too many wild cards.
Okay. You make a strong argument. I'm ready to move on from that idea. Cool. I don't want to cook anymore. That's not my intention. Did anyone see anything that Megan showed us that was new and different that you felt strongly about?
I like the food saver.
Yeah, those kind of interesting, right? But how would we pick? Is it going to be a variety of fruit savers, or do we say we want apple fruit savers, or we want?
Well, they're versatile. So one could be for an apple or a tomato or a grapefruit or whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying?
You said they had avocado shaped ones, so I think that's what.
That's the only one that's I think in different shape.
So I think do we want to see if there's like a plurality for fruit savers?
Yeah.
Do people feel good about fruit savers?
So I think, it just heads up, what will happen is
one of them.
You'll share ideas that you're most interested in,
Sure.
even if that means it was something that you didn't see tonight, and then I'll come back with like a final presentation, the real cost breakdown. So I have food savers. Is there anything from last year?
I like all the things from last year.
Okay.
Does anyone not like anything from last year?
If we could get a variety of plants for the pots, I think that would be better. I'm thinking we need to do something to try to get away from people trying to spray their backyards for mosquitoes, and maybe try to go to a plant-friendly aspect of that, and maybe try to encourage folks to go with plants that discourage mosquitoes and other pests that we don't like.
I think if that's possible, which it may or may not be, that's an awesome idea.
I've never heard of plants that discourage mosquitoes. I would love to get a list of them. I have a place I'll plant the heck out of.
Marigold and lavender tend to do it.
Really? Okay.
I would kind of think you could get lavender in one of those pots.
Beautyberry is known as a good insect repellent. Actually tested by the Army and found it was close to be as good as DEET.
What is that again? I'm sorry.
Beautyberry.
Beautyberry. Thank you.
Yeah. It's a bush though.
Mm-hmm.
So is this enough variety, or maybe it doesn't matter, having the two events so close to each other? If we may get significant overlap, or maybe not, of people coming by the booth, and do we think they'll stop by again and grab more swag, or would they be expecting different swag, or I don't know. That was just something that popped to mind.
Well, I think that it's a good consideration. Just to add something to that, EarthFest probably will have about a fourth of the turnout as PeakFest, so you'll get a really good variety of people who haven't seen your booth yet. And so I would almost target, the 3/4 that haven't seen it versus, appeasing the 1/4 who have already seen it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's set up with the farmer's market, we're going to get a ton of traffic from the farmer's market, because that's what really drove us. I mean, before I could even get things set up, I mean, we had people coming by. Just to having gone to the farmer's market and seeing everything going up.
I feel okay if people just come because they want a different item. Right, I feel okay with that.
Maybe the activity could be different.
Yeah.
Or you do like you did last year where you offered 2 different activities.
Yeah.
So maybe they can try the other and then get a new
Right.
prize item or something.
Right. I think one thing that you raised that I hadn't thought of was perhaps there should be t-shirts for the people who are on the board to wear those events.
Absolutely.
Right, so maybe we don't need 100 t-shirts, but we need 15 t-shirts.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That might be wise. Because then at those events, it's pretty clear who is representing the board.
I can say of the ones that we had at Earth Fest during my 2 hours that I was at the booth, the dog bowls did not go over well because a lot of people didn't have dogs. So every time they would land on dog bowl, they would go, ugh. And I'd go, oh, just spin again, you know.
That's funny because I think at Peak Fest, the dog bowls were hugely popular.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it may have encouraged some families to get dogs because the kids got the dog bowl and said, now we have to get a dog. I got a little bit of that too.
Go to the SPCA, please.
I didn't tell them to go to PetSmart.
I think that sounds great. Thank you, Megan, for organizing all those ideas.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll come back next time with the details.
Yeah,
those
that
items.
sounds great. Thanks for planning way ahead too. Does anyone have any items for open discussion? Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Bill. We have a second.
I'll
Suzanne will second. I will vote in favor. John?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Kim?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Suzanne, I didn't officially call on you because your hand was in the air, but would you like to officially vote?
Yes, aye.
Great. Great. Thanks, everybody. Stay dry.